Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Bish. Great to be back with you here on the show on this Thursday. We got plenty to get to here on the program. The latest in the National Basketball Association. Today we're going to lean on Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, preview a couple of matchups, talk about the MVP, get the very latest on what's happening in the association. Also, Sam McQuillan joins us from Legal Sports Report, the latest in sports betting, the landscape across the country. Each and every day we have a guest contributor from LSR. Today it is Sam McQuillan, and our friend George Kurtz will join us here on the show as well, talking some National Football League and some hockey with the All-Star festivities as well. So those are just some of the things that we're following here on the show today. Thanks for tuning in. And naturally, we're still following the coaching cycle in the National Football League. And I did not expect the Seattle Seahawks to make this decision, but they have made it. And some people thought it could go a number of different directions, but Mike Macdonald is the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. And the Commanders are now the only team in the NFL that haven't hired a coach. How about that? Ravens is where Mike Macdonald comes from. This is not the singer Mike Macdonald, by the way, Michael McDonald. Those of you who are as old as me or a little bit older may know him. If you're younger, you probably have no idea who that is. But needless to say, Mike Macdonald, defensive coordinator of the Baltimore Ravens, now the new head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. Now, as far as some other coordinator positions are concerned, let's go around the National Football League because there's been a lot of changes happening, and there's a couple of more yesterday and today. We'll start with Bobby Slowick. He is returning to Houston as the offensive coordinator, and next offseason, you would expect Ben Johnson and Bobby Slowick to be right at the top as potential first-time head coaches. Houston had a great season. The Titans are hiring Denard Wilson as their defensive coordinator. He was the Baltimore Ravens defensive backs coach. The Jets and assistant GM Rex Hogan have mutually agreed to part ways after 5 seasons. Don't know if this is correlated to any of these reports that we've been seeing on social media about the Jets going through a ton last season. Not to say that this is related, but who really knows? And the Panthers have named Brant Tillis as their new executive vice president of football operations. He comes over from the Kansas City Chiefs, which if you're going to pluck somebody over and have them join your organization, I would say you probably start right at the top with the Kansas City Chiefs. All right, in college sports headlines, Tennessee and Virginia's attorney general are suing the NCAA over NIL rules. We're seeing a ton of this. An antitrust lawsuit against the NCAA on Wednesday that challenges the ban on the use of NIL compensation in the recruit of college athletes. Needless to say, NILs have done great things for college athletes, but it's also made a little bit of a mess of the kids actually staying at the schools. Congratulations to Caitlin Clark. She's number 2 all-time on the NCAA women's scoring list. She passed Ohio State's former star Kelsey Mitchell and trails only Kelsey Plum, if I'm not mistaken, 3,402 yards. 2 points, excuse me there. I got a little confused. 2 Kelseys there, huh? Okay. The Packers have hired Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley as their new defensive coordinator. And Georgia, how about this? Their football team in Athens are going to start selling beer to fans at Sanford Stadium this fall. And this move comes 5 years after the SEC lifted its ban on alcohol sales at conference events. So those of you heading to the University of Georgia to see what's probably going to be the number 1 team ranked in all of college football, you can drink beer there as well. The NBA, they did away with the 7 rounds many years ago. For those of you who don't remember, the NBA used to actually draft 7 rounds worth of basketball players, and usually only the first or second round made it. They went down to 2 rounds. They do it all in one night, but now they're making it into a big extravaganza. I don't know how they're going to get this one figured out. Who's going to watch this on the second night? Please tell me. The NBA has officially announced a 2-day event, June 26th, June 27th. The first round is at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, and the second round is going over to the Seaport District Studios in Lower Manhattan. Catch that second round of NBA draft action. It's fantastic. Joel Embiid out again tonight against the Oklahoma City Thunder. He injured his knee in Tuesday night's game against the Golden State Warriors. Again, still trying to chase that MVP. Got to play 65 games. Anthony Edwards, remember him criticizing the referees earlier this week, saying they were playing 8-on-5. He's been fined $40,000 for making those comments. And Marc Gasol, who last appeared at the NBA 2020-2021, is retiring after 14 seasons in the NBA. So congratulations to Gasol, who also won a championship with the Toronto Raptors. Okay, in hockey, as I mentioned, George Kurtz will weigh on this coming up in a little bit in terms of trade, but Vancouver has made a big one. They acquire all-star center Elias Lindholm from the Flames will be a free agent at the end of the season. The fundraiser for this Jackie Robinson statue that was stolen and burned in Wichita, true story, is reached $140,000, which is awesome because it's only worth about 75 grand. So they really can build a new one and put it back up, and that should be a very special event. Live Golf getting ready to debut this weekend, and they have something really cool coming up as well. They're partnering with Google and going to roll out what's called Any Shot Anytime. It's going to be a feature that's coming this summer, which will allow fans to log onto the site and watch any group or player live throughout a tournament or round. We see some of this, of course, in some of the majors over on the PGA Tour, but Live Golf is going to do this for every single tournament, trying to enhance their product, get more people naturally to watch. They have no problem with paying the players. They just got to get people to watch it as well. And last night on social media, they made it official. David Rubenstein and Cal Ripken Jr. Now, we don't know what percentage Cal Ripken Jr. certainly has in terms of ownership of the Baltimore Orioles. I can tell you, knowing a little bit about baseball, this is probably in a very, very minuscule percent. But that being said, Cal Ripken Jr. is joining the ownership group with David Rubenstein and the Baltimore Orioles. So Ripken, who, well, let's be honest, still around the Orioles, but didn't have the best relationship at the end here with the Angelos family, went on social media and thanked David Rubenstein and company for bringing him back aboard. So he is now back where he belongs, of course, the Iron Man with the Baltimore Orioles. For those of you getting ready to catch our Super Bowl coverage, which begins next week, you want to download the SportsGrid app for all of that great information. It'll tell you more about our coverage, news, notes, and information, picks against the spread. You can download the SportsGrid app simply by taking out your phone and scanning this QR code, which I'm going to show you now, coming up here on the screen. There it is. You just scan it right there. Download the SportsGrid app, iOS and Android. It's the same QR code. You can learn all about our company and everything that's going on in our programming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is the SportsGrid app. Download it now. And as I mentioned, because of our Super Bowl coverage, NewsWire next week is going to be on at a different time. Monday will be on from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern, but the rest of the week, folks, for those of you who are catching the show every day, and maybe you're just learning about us for the first time, which is possible, 12 p.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern. I will be live here from Studio C in South Florida, but of course, many guests at Radio Row that we will be covering out there at Mandalay Bay in Las Vegas, and we will have some of those on this show, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So hopefully you will tune into our show as well as our Super Bowl coverage next week. Okay, Matt Lutovsky, he's getting ready for the Super Bowl, but also mixing in some National Basketball Association. How about the hottest team in the NBA? It is the New York Knicks. How about an incredible month for them? We'll recap it coming up next here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I
favorite.
don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the RAC. It was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you can talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Matt Lutovsky is joining us from the Sporting News. We're going to talk some NBA, but just very quickly, we got some breaking news reported by ESPN about 5 minutes ago. The next head coach of the Washington Commanders is indeed Dan Quinn. They made that announcement, so the Commanders now have their new head coach. We'll touch on this with George Kurtz coming up and talk some football, but Matt Lutovsky is here to talk some hoops. I know he talks football with us throughout the season, talks some basketball as well. Matt, thanks for coming on the program. And I guess we could do 15 seconds or 20 seconds on this. I mean, certainly this is not a surprise. He was like the last name left of coaches that didn't get hired.
Yeah, no, not a huge shock. I mean, the shock was Ben Johnson taking his name out of the running. So Dan Quinn getting the job after that, not a huge surprise. And we'll see. I don't think exciting for Commanders fans, but also not the worst thing in the world by any means.
Yeah, I mean, look, had success as a head coach previously, got to the Super Bowl too. Okay, let's get into the NBA here a little bit. How about the red-hot New York Knicks, 14-2 in their last 16, best month since 1994. Matt, it's really, a fascinating story with the Knicks because no one's ever satisfied with the Knicks' success. It's like, okay, they're good, but what's going to happen in the playoffs? Or they win in the playoffs, but how far can they go? Where do you think what do you think a successful season looks like for the Knicks at the end of the playoffs? What will that successful season look like?
Yeah, I mean, just as an outside observer, I think if they go to the conference finals, that's certainly a successful season. I think, you want to do better than you did last year. You always want to build, especially after you've made a trade, a big-ish trade, which they did. And I think that's the trade that's really fueled them. Getting OG Anunoby to shore up that defense even more, provide a little bit of scoring punch. That, they gave away some scoring to get better on D, but it's not as if Anunoby is a stiff out there. He can make some buckets too, and it's just all come together really well. So I think this team is a legitimate threat. It's tough to say they're better than Boston and even Philly and Milwaukee. It's tough to say they're better than them, but I don't think that's crazy. I think Boston's the only one that you feel real confident saying is definitely better than the Knicks. So this is going to be a fun team to watch down the stretch. The playoffs are going to be really fun when the Garden's going. And I just think that they are a team it's going to be tough to do better than what they just did, but they are a team that's going to continue to be good the rest of the year, barring a big injury, obviously.
Yeah, and not being at the bottom of the Eastern Conference would be a switch for them, maybe getting some key home games in the playoffs as well. All right, well, it's been a switch for Doc Rivers. He's now the next head coach, the new head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks. He gets off to a tough start here, Matt, 0-2. They lost to Denver on Monday, but really last night I think is going to sting a little bit more, losing to Portland, 119-116. I guess we're in the overreaction universe here in sports, but naturally I assume this will get fixed. Just a tough start.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously this team had problems. They wouldn't have fired their coach midway through the year when they were 30-13 if they didn't. And those problems aren't going to get fixed overnight just because there's a new guy leading the huddles. So they do have some things to shore up. They're still a very good team. Most nights, I would say almost every single night, they have the best player on the floor, which goes a long way. And, losing at Denver, I don't think there's any shame in that. No one would holds that against them. The Portland loss is a little bit weird when you start factoring in the emotion of Dame going back. And I think that team and certainly that crowd was very fired up for that game. It was disappointing how it ended, of course, but this is still a really good team. This is a team that's going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I think Doc's going to right the ship in a lot of ways for them. And like I said, they're going to have the best player on the court most nights in the playoffs too. And I think just talent wise, if not second best, third best team in the East, and a team with championship pedigree. They know what it takes. Most of the key guys have gone all the way before. So I think this is going to be a good team, but we all know Doc has problems in the playoffs too. So it'll be interesting to see how all these things intersect.
All right, we appear to have lost. Oh,
Yeah, it's going to be a tough
okay,
one.
we appear to. Okay, Matt, are you there? We were losing you there for a second here, just making sure you're back.
Yeah, you got me?
Good to go? Yep. Okay, we lost you there for a
I
second.
was just saying it's going to be real interesting to see how it intersects in the playoffs.
Yes. Point well taken. Okay, now the NBA's MVP is going to be a very fascinating dynamic this year because, again, you have to play 65 games to win. You have to play 20 minutes apiece in those 65 games. And with the amount of games that Joel Embiid has missed already, he is off the board over on FanDuel, which is kind of crazy to think that the best player in the NBA is not going to win the MVP. And there's certainly a very good chance of that at this point. So Nikola Jokic right now is the favorite, followed by Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who went down from plus 380 to plus 300 over the course of the week. Luka has moved up, Matt, to 5-1. And then you have Giannis at 7-1. If anybody else wins, I think it would be a surprise. But Magic Johnson yesterday went on social media and said that he appreciates the fact that the new rule is in place, that you have to play a certain amount of games. And Matt, really the reason why Magic Johnson's comments I thought made sense, it's really not about the MVP. It's about the player going on the road and just simply not playing and people paying to see the players play. So I get it. I understand it. And I don't see this changing anytime soon.
No, it's a weird one, especially when a guy's actually hurt. I think, the idea behind it is, well, this will cut down on the sitting out. Well, what if the guy's actually hurt? And that's where it gets interesting. And you have a situation this past week where there was a lot of talk about Joel Embiid not playing in that Nuggets game. Could he have played? Maybe. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. And then he goes out there a few nights later and gets hurt and now might be out longer. And so it's a very tough situation. And I think, looking at the MVP race, I think we talked about it last week about how Shai was a really good value bet at that time and now only gets stronger. And because I don't think Jokic cares about the MVP. Maybe he's just so good and the team is so good, he wins it. Can't help but win it, even though he doesn't care. But I definitely think SGA is he's not necessarily going for MVP, but his team is going for first in the West. His team really cares about the regular season and they value these wins and this experience they're getting together. And when you put that all together at the end of the year, he's going to be one of the league leaders in scoring. He's going to be the unquestioned leader of possibly the number one team in the West. And he's just really going to stand out. So I really like SGA. I like him at his odds. And like you said, it's very unfortunate, the Embiid situation, and then some, possibly some of the other situations for all NBA too that we might get into later in the year. But yeah, the NBA sort of painted themselves in this corner. You could argue the players painted the NBA in this corner. Either way, it's definitely going to cause some controversy.
Well, now there's no controversy about getting to 40,000 points in the NBA. What a historical mark coming for LeBron James. But they're under 500 again, Matt. I don't know that that's really matters. It feels like the Lakers just don't play in the regular season. Maybe that's part of everything that's going on. There's no question that they're going to be in some sort of play-in situation or even make the playoffs somehow. I know they want the Lakers in that. But, the end of LeBron's career after winning that championship in the bubble is certainly not going the way that he anticipated it.
No, I mean, like you said, the numbers are still there, but the team success really hasn't been. But it is funny, they did make the Western Conference Finals last year, and it was a sweep, and we kind of forget it, but that's still pretty good, and they're still going to be there. And when you look at the top of the West, some of these teams without much playoff experience / success, like the Timberwolves, like the Thunder, and if they're facing the Lakers in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised one bit if the Lakers are favored as long as they're healthy. At least their two big ones are healthy, and then they might make a trade here or there, do something like they usually do. I don't think anyone wants to see them in the playoffs, especially teams like that, like I said, haven't had that playoff success here over the last couple of years. So it's going to be real interesting, and anything can happen with LeBron. I'm at the point where I wouldn't be shocked by anything happening. Him being traded wouldn't shock me if he wants it, and the Lakers doing some sort of big trade wouldn't shock me.
Happen. All right, Matt, have a great rest of your week. Thanks for coming on.
All right, thank you.
We'll be right back.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev.
Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
So right now we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the rack. And it was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you can talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event. The atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. I don't think that if you have been on social media anytime over the past few months, you could avoid sports betting ads. You see them all over the place for FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM. But now partnerships are really ingrained, and there's one in particular that I think could be a game changer. Let's see if Sam McQuillan agrees. He's with us here now on NewsWire. And Sam, this partnership that we saw really pop off last week, where you literally are a click away from betting on X / Twitter, what it used to be. Is this kind of the next wave of how we view sports betting?
Yeah, Craig, it's a fascinating development seeing a platform as large as Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, get into the sports betting business. And I know we've long kind of speculated that, when a big company like Apple or Amazon gets into it, that could be a real game changer. But it seems like it starts with Twitter, which is now going to partner with BetMGM. It seems like news broke late on Friday that the social media platform was changing its sourcing code to add specific tagging. I'm not super knowledgeable about all the technological stuff that goes into it, but basically they were getting ready to add betting related stuff in there, including, different codes, whether to advertise problem gambling stuff, which is all the stuff you see when you talk about sports betting. And then it came out that BetMGM was going to partner with them. It's an undisclosed amount, first reported by Forbes. We don't know when it's going to start this partnership, but we do know that it will mean that BetMGM data and statistics and even links to click and bet are going to be integrated into Twitter or X's software at some point coming up this year. Most likely, you would expect. Now, BetMGM obviously is third in market share behind DraftKings and FanDuel, but it's by a wide margin. It's not like it's gunning. It's close behind either of those guys. It's along with Caesars. It's kind of been in this middle area where it's trying to find this next thing that's going to really put it over the hump. And certainly this could be a solution there, at least part of the solution. Twitter has 55 million monthly active users, which is like 5 times what most sports books altogether have, even during their busiest season. So it's a good opportunity there. And I think anytime, you have links where people can click and bet immediately, and you reduce that friction between, okay, I just saw somebody on Twitter posted something about it, BetMGM. Now I got to open up my app and wait for it to load and figure out how to get to the bet there. Anytime you can reduce that friction, it's going to really help flock people over the platform, especially the casual bettors that you want. They're going to be betting smaller amounts and not necessarily price shopping or line shopping as much. So it could be a big move. I caught up with Jordan Bender of JMP Securities, who thinks that, the advanced algorithms that Twitter has could really boost it beyond the other partnerships that we've talked about, sort of curating to what an individual sees. You have your For You page where different things pop up. So it'd be interesting to see where it goes, obviously. But it's definitely different than the traditional TV advertising deals we've seen in the past. Though for the price tag, it might be a good bet. We'll have to see what comes out there more. And obviously for Twitter, they're in this very interesting point right now where they're trying to make up for a lot of revenue they lost. Companies like Disney have left advertising on the platform because of some reports about Twitter promoting maybe anti-Semitic remarks, and Elon Musk has publicly feuded with Disney CEO Bob Iger, and obviously Disney owns ESPN Bet. So it's an interesting part of the story there too, is BetMGM versus the other sports books.
Yeah, definitely so. We'll see what the future holds. Maybe other providers getting involved, or maybe this is a one and done. We just don't know. Okay, so the story broke, I want to say a couple of months ago here, about the former president over at the MGM Grand. He pled guilty to money laundering, and it was an illegal bookmaking ring. And so just by pleading guilty, what does this mean, Sam? Does this mean like just sentencing is next?
Yep, that's exactly what it means. It's the former MGM Grand president, Scott Sabella, pleaded guilty to a federal criminal charge, basically failing to file reports of suspicious transactions at his casino, which is the MGM Grand, as well as the Cosmopolitan, both in Las Vegas. He essentially admitted to knowing that this now very well-known bookie was spending upwards of $5 million in basically dirty money at the MGM casinos. And he basically said, I kind of knew what was going on. I didn't really want to look into it. He was spending so much money with us, I didn't want to flag it. But that's against the law in the U.S., so he admitted to violating the Bank Secrecy Act, which basically means if a casino knows something, they got to say something. So he faces up to 5 years in prison for this, as well as a $250,000 fine. And the MGM has already agreed to pay about $7 million in fines associated with it. But it all comes back to this story, which we've talked about a few times, is this guy, Wayne Nix, who ran a bookmaking business for 20 years. He was the guy in question in this case, going to the casinos, actually getting benefits from Sabella as well as MGM to like complimentary benefits, basically free meals, golf trips with a business executive, things like that, that he actually said he would use to help recruit more people and high profile executives. And this is a very big case. He has sentencing, I believe, in a few months and faces, I think, 20 years in prison. This is a case that involved former LA Dodger Yasiel Puig, Maverick Carter, LeBron James businessman. So it's some pretty big names popping up yet again in this case that seems to always bubble up with more celebrities, get more people involved. It's not a good look for MGM, obviously, or the gambling industry in general, basically enticing this dirty money into their casinos and using that as a way to recruit more people and kind of benefiting from him. So it was investigated by Homeland Security, and it's kind of another sign that federal law enforcement is really looking in, cracking down more on the illegal bookmaking business and illegal gambling rings that we have in the U.S.
Yeah, it does. Okay, let's end here with a new partnership coming in. We saw this on social media yesterday. LeBron James partnering with DraftKings, but to promote NFL betting and also potentially to do some of his own content. We saw LeBron earlier in the football season, Sam, take to social media saying, man, my picks are pretty good. Maybe I'm going to post them every week. Boy, DraftKings certainly took note of that, and here we go.
Yeah, kudos to DraftKings for taking note of that. I remember LeBron he's like, I do this NFL thing, or like, I'm posting all my picks today, and now he's monetizing it, and DraftKings is going to monetize it. It's kind of funny, both sides, King James, DraftKings, some, I guess, synchronicities there. But he's basically going to be doing this football initiative where he's going to be doing content, and I would assume it's picks for the next football season, which is pretty interesting because, you have the history of, sports betting and athletes being involved. Now, he's obviously not going to be doing any NBA picks, at least while he's still playing. I don't know how many years he has left, but if he retires, he could go into it. So this is a guy, that said he predicted Kobe scoring 81 points back in the day, and has kind of popped up on social media as having all these kind of like embellishing stories and stuff. So I bet it'll be a lot of funny content that they do together. And, he has 53 million followers on Twitter, about 159 million on Instagram, which is like 150 times DraftKings. So it's a good opportunity for them to promote the content more. And up until last year's collective bargaining agreement, this wouldn't have been allowed. Players were prohibited from not only, doing partnerships with sports books, but investing in the companies in general. And that was something they actually really fought for in the CBA, because the owners were allowed to invest in companies. You have the Rockets owner, Tillman Fertitta, a huge stake in DraftKings from selling Golden Knight. And a lot of the players are kind of saying, hey, we want to get our piece in. This should be fair for everyone. So as part of that change, they said, hey, players, if you guys want to do sponsorships with sports books, you can. And this is sort of the first one we're really seeing here. And obviously LeBron James is a huge, huge name, not only in the NBA, but across the world. So I'd have to think that more of these will follow, maybe with probably it wouldn't be in a sports book's best interest to do it with a smaller name, but I'd imagine other companies like Caesars, BetMGM that want to make good on these partnership deals we're seeing will pop up with their own. But yeah, very interesting to see the King get involved with DraftKings here.
Yeah, definitely. So Sam, do you think that it was strictly them like piquing the interest of LeBron? I mean, obviously they don't go through LeBron, they go through Maverick Carter or his agents or everything else, but do you think that is why he's doing this? Like it's the direct correlation just from simply his social media post back in September?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they said, hey, wow, LeBron likes to bet. Nobody has him as a partner. Nobody's making money off that. Let's do it. And I mean, yeah, Maverick Carter, like we just talked about, was one of the guys implicated in this illegal bookie ring. So interesting to see, the lines kind of blurred there, what people accept, what people don't accept. But yeah, if I'm DraftKings, I'm like just going to throw him as much money as possible because, they pay Kevin Hart a lot of money. They pay Peyton Manning, I think, is with Caesars. All these celebrities get paid so much money. So if you can get an actual active athlete who not only likes to bet and talk about it, but actively post on his own on social media, you don't even have to make him do that. And he's already such a well-known player. He's even bigger online as a personality. I think it's a no-brainer and a great move for DraftKings. Kudos to whoever was following his Instagram feed and realized it, and also realized that we need to keep this to NFL, not other sports.
Yeah, does make sense. All right, Sam. Well, appreciate it as always for coming on the show. We will talk again next week. We'll get the very latest on what the Nevada handle is going to look like for the Super Bowl, with the Super Bowl, of course, headed to Las Vegas next week. Thanks again for coming on.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks, Craig.
All right, Sam McQuillan, LegalSportsReport.com. Make sure you check him out there. Coming up next, Ben Stevens is going to join us here and give us a preview of a couple of games in the NBA tonight. We've got the 76ers taking on the Utah Jazz. Looks like no Joel Embiid again for Philly tonight in Utah. And then the classic showdown is also tonight between the Lakers and Celtics. So we'll preview those two games, as well as George Kurtz. He joins us on the show to talk a little Super Bowl. We'll get into the football hirings that happened yesterday and today. In case you missed it, Dan Quinn is the next head coach of the Washington Commanders. Story broke about 30 minutes ago. So stay with us here on SportsGrid. More NewsWire coming up next. We dive into the NFL, the NBA, a little NHL as well here on this Thursday morning. And we'll be right back. Don't go away.
Quarterback at quarterback. We're going to lay some juice. We're going to have some dog prices, and we're going to go right in the middle.
Because I don't know what they're doing. To me, they're in a complete rebuild, Kev. Go run, run, run. That's where overbackers on this 51.5 shot.
Right now, we saw a little bit more over money, but it's hovering right around.
The winner of this game will be the division
I don't care if they win, because all we care about is the money, baby, the money.
Pro Football Today. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can tell you, like, Las Vegas is heavy San Francisco territory. All right, there are a ton of Niner fans, man, in Las Vegas and in Nevada, and specifically Reno. Reno's close, obviously, right? So, like, Reno's numbers will be a little bit different, but the total of 47.5. I get it.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
I kind of thought that Mike would maybe go in a different direction, or at least listen to some people with some different ideas.
If you were going to retain Mike Tomlin as coach, and I believe with both feet that you shouldn't let him really anywhere near this hire. That he had proved over the years that this was not an area of comfort or expertise for him.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Purdue on the road in a very difficult place to win in Piscataway, New Jersey. Not in Jersey Mike's Arena, but in the Rack. And it was tight.
You still have to win these games. Like, you talk about even equate it to the NBA. Like OKC just rolling into Detroit going, yeah, this is going to be an easy victory, and not coming away with the W because you're not focused here. Good move there for the Purdue Boilermakers. You can take a look at Zach Edey.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
One that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. Now let's check in with Ben Stevens. We've got a preview of two games in the NBA, the 76ers and Jazz, and the great showdown between the Lakers and Celtics. Here's a preview.
Craig, for the remainder of this 2023-24 NBA season, you will hear about the 65-game minimum, a new rule this year put in by the NBA's league office that you have to play at least 65 of your team's 82 regular season games to be in consideration for NBA awards after the year. All pro teams, and both of those come with large contract incentives for stars around the association. And it has come to a head this week, Craig, in a couple of different spots, but mainly in the NBA MVP odds. At this point last week, Joel Embiid, the reigning NBA MVP, the superstar for Philadelphia, was booked as the favorite to win this year's MVP award around the association. That was a plus 125 number. But earlier this week, in a game in San Francisco against Golden State, after JoJo had already missed 11 games so far this year, he went down to the floor clutching his left knee. It is seen that he could be on the sideline for at least a couple of games, which would put that 65-game minimum, the stipulation you need to hit, very much in jeopardy. Craig, because of that, you won't even see a price on Joel Embiid anymore to win the NBA MVP. The guy that won it 2 years before him, both of the years before Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic for the Denver Nuggets, a pretty apropos face right there, minus 125 if you were to ask the Joker about that 65-game minimum. So now an odds-on favorite for Nikola Jokic. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, the young star for Oklahoma City, second best price at 3-1, and Luka Doncic continues his historic run here at a 5-1 price. But again, not even like Embiid moved back by $5, $10, $15. Here you even see Kevin Durant at plus 10,000 in the NBA MVP odds. Joel Embiid is not even listed any longer for MVP consideration, at least on the odds board. So now we go to just a 4-game slate in the NBA on this Thursday night, a historic rivalry in Beantown. The Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers. 11-point spread in favor of the C's. A pretty high total here at 240.5 as well. Boston, in Boston, nobody better this year for the NBA's best team. The Celtics, Craig, now 22-2, straight up inside TD Garden in Boston, booked as a favorite in all 24 games. They are now 13-11 against the spread. The Lakers, meanwhile, a hefty underdog. They were a dog on the road with LeBron James in Atlanta a couple of nights ago against the worst cover team in the NBA, that being the Atlanta Hawks. No Anthony Davis in that game. This large of a spread might stipulate that LeBron or AD, we'll see who's in action on this Thursday night. Again, only a quadruple header of games. That's 4, and we don't expect to see Joel Embiid tonight for the Philadelphia 76ers. Booked as a road underdog in Salt Lake City. Tyrese Maxey, who has missed the last 4 games for Philadelphia, his status slightly uncertain for this matchup in Salt Lake as well. Over under 235.5. The 76ers only an underdog 11 times this season. Now 5-6, Craig, against the spread. Meanwhile, Utah hasn't been booked as a favorite often, but when they have, they've been sensational. 9-3 against the numbers. So if you see Utah as a favorite, there is probably a reason behind that, and the Jazz have been covering numbers, booked as the favorite side this year. 4 games in the NBA, Craig, on this Thursday. Enjoy the action in the association.
All right, thanks very much, Ben. We'll check back with Ben on tomorrow's show. But joining us now to talk some Super Bowl preview, some NHL as well, and some coaching hires is George Kurtz. You hear him all over SportsGrid Radio. See him here on SportsGrid TV as well. George, great to have you back on NewsWire. What's going on?
Oh, you know, Craig, it's a trying time for me now, Craig, because I have to go 4 days now. 4 days without a game, right? No NFL this weekend. The NHL is at the All-Star game, and the NHL All-Star game is not a game. So I gotta survive until Monday. I might actually have to spend time with my family.
Oh my God, George. I don't want to put that pressure on you. You know, I mean, it's enough. I mean, the dogs, the family. I mean, you may have to hang out. A quick question, George. You know, they asked me earlier on a previous show if I had a choice of basically anything, what would be my Super Bowl meal or what would be my Super Bowl food. I'm wondering, George, from your perspective, what you would want to have on Super Bowl Sunday if you had the choice. You know, basically, it is yours.
I think if you talk about finger food, I'm a chicken guy, man. So give me chicken fingers, chicken wings. That's probably where I'm going with there. It's an easy choice. I love chicken. If you talk about a meal, you still go with chicken parmesan. I'm a big fan of that. Or I'm a fan. Anybody who knows me, by the way, I get that all the time. That's all. If I go to an Italian restaurant, that's all I'm getting. And I mean every time. It's pretty simple. You know why? I'm going to be happy with it. I am not going to experiment and take a chance here. You cannot screw chicken parmesan up. So chicken parmesan is what I would always go with. It's my favorite meal. It's not even close.
That's what I said this morning, and I told everyone that George is going to come on and he's going to say the same thing. And George, full transparency, I did not reach out to you at all. You had no idea that this was coming, correct, on the show, right?
I did not. He just literally told me you're going to ask me this question 2 minutes ago, and so no, I did not know. Craig did not.
And you delivered. You delivered on what I thought you would deliver here. So Sam, there you go. Told you. All right, now let's get to the preview. Are these odds correct, by the way? Are the 49ers 2.5-point favorites on FanDuel? Okay, up to 2.5 now. Okay, so that's news. Total 47.5. What do you make of this, George? Why are the 49ers going why is the point spread changing here? Why are the 49ers now moving up?
Well, this is what it came in as, right? Right after San Fran beat Detroit in the NFC Championship game, it was 2.5 immediately that night. Then it almost quickly went down to 1.5. We even able to get it at 1 in a couple of books here, and now it's climbing back up again. I mean, listen, I'm the first person to tell you this, or two things. Is San Fran the better team, 1-53? Yeah, they are. I truly believe that. That being said, and I said this on every show I did last weekend, right? Pro Football Today, Fantasy Sports Today. You don't make money betting against Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. Yet what did I do? I bet on Baltimore. So, maybe it's just sometimes to what I talk about here, not the brightest move on my part here. It comes down to this. If San Fran plays their best game and Kansas City plays their best game, San Fran wins. The problem is San Fran has not played their best game, right? They probably should have lost to Green Bay and almost definitely should have lost to Detroit. All right, everything had to go their way for them to pull up these wins. Kansas City is a veteran team. They've been here before. They won't make those mistakes that those teams made here. So I said I am going to follow up my advice this time. I'm going to take Kansas City and the points here. The only question now is, we still got, 10 days? Will it get to 3? Yeah. Will it get to 3.5? That's our only question.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine it getting to 3, but maybe it's possible. Now, to have some fun with the Super Bowl MVP, it's no fun to take Mahomes or Purdy. So can you make a case for anyone else? They asked me the same question on an earlier show. I took Debo 20-1. It's not like a bet for me. It's just like I'm trying to find a narrative, a player that's outside of a quarterback. But George, it's like you go back 25 years and you see like 20 quarterbacks winning this award. It's like a quarterback award in the Super Bowl, but you never know.
It is a quarterback-driven award, and it's a quarterback-driven league here. I don't see anybody on Kansas City winning it other than Mahomes. So I think if you're looking for somebody else other than a quarterback, it would be on San Fran. I think you went the right direction, all right? Because Purdy has not played well, especially in the first half, right, of both games here. He's played somewhat poorly. We sort of blame the rain for the first game. Last week, no rain. He just didn't play well against Detroit. Took him a little bit there. Christian McCaffrey is the obvious choice here. Right, if you don't want to go to a quarterback, it probably is McCaffrey, because would it shock anybody if he has 128 total yards here, 2 touchdowns? No. And maybe Purdy just doesn't have a big game. Maybe this is a game where Purdy throws for 227 yards, a touchdown. Yeah, maybe he throws a pick too. Those aren't sexy numbers, but it's McCaffrey, especially if it's the game-winning touchdown. All right, so I could see it being McCaffrey here, but I don't see any way where it's Mahomes. And we don't think I don't think it's going to be a shootout. We don't think it's going to be a Rams-New England Super Bowl either, where a defensive play is going to get it. Like Chris Jones is going to have 3 sacks and a 13-7 Kansas City win. We don't see that either. So if I'm going to go off the board here and not take a quarterback, it'll be McCaffrey.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. All right, so now 2 hirings in the NFL over the last 24 hours. Seattle hires Mike McDonald as their head coach. He was the defensive coordinator with Baltimore. And the Commanders have given Dan Quinn another shot to coach in the NFL. Quinn, of course, was, I thought, very good in Atlanta. I mean, I got the team all the way to the Super Bowl, did a good job with Dallas as well. The question, George, do either of these hires move the needle in their respective cities? Do either of these hires push the foot on the pedal, get them better faster? Or is it simply put, Washington's going to need a few years? Seattle, I mean, they were a competitive team, but let's be honest, they were not good enough to win playoff games. There's no question.
Well, I mean, let's start with McDonald, right? I think we all saw this coming. This is why Seattle waited so long. They waited for Baltimore to be eliminated. And I think they would have waited 2 more weeks, by the way, if Baltimore would end up in the Super Bowl here. I think they wanted McDonald. He's their guy. You know, it's funny. Seattle goes from having the oldest head coach of Pete Carroll to the youngest head coach now in McDonald here. Does it move the needle? Probably not all that much yet. I think he's going to need some time here to see what kind of coach he's going to become. You're in the same division with San Fran. Don't see them getting any worse here. And the Rams took a huge step forward this year, right? Who saw that coming? And let's see what the Cardinals can do in the offseason as well here. So I don't see this moving the needle greatly here, although I do think they can be a wild card team next year. Don't get me wrong. I think they could make the playoffs here. Quinn to Washington is much more interesting as far as, boy, was he just the last guy left when the music stopped and they had no choice here? I mean, they were turned down by Johnson, which is a big shock. And also weird. Why would you turn down a head coaching job for Johnson on Detroit? The OC there, we all assumed he was going to take this job, and he didn't want it. They just got bought, right, by the gazillionaire there. You would have thought they would have wanted a sexier name, a top guy here, and they don't get it. You know, the Quinn's done a magical job. You said it, Craig. Was very good with Dallas. I'm sorry to see him go as a Cowboy fan there. But don't you also find it a little strange? They have the second pick in the draft. We all assume they're taking a quarterback. You would have thought a top young offensive mind or a quarterback coming there. He's not, you know. So we'll see what's going to go on here. I know you go online here. They're calling Quinn Ron Rivera 2.0. So it's not starting off well in Washington at all. The fans are not happy with this hire.
Yeah. Okay, let's end here. And maybe, you know, it's really a tough story to talk about here, but, you know, we obviously have to do it. 5 members of the 2018 World Junior Hockey Team have been told to surrender in London, facing sexual assault charges. You know, certainly, George, this is, you know, a horrible look for the league, a horrible look for junior hockey as well. And naturally, when you saw this news, what was your opinion on it? We got 1 minute to go. Sorry to leave you hanging there with a minute.
Yeah, the big player there was Hart, the goaltender for Philadelphia. He's the top name there. A couple of Devils, Dylan Dubé of Calgary, and one guy was out of the league playing in Europe. So it's just sad that this happens here. It's just sad. We'll see if it's true or not. I think the league is not handling this well at all. They've been contacted multiple times, by Elliot Friedman's little Darren Dragons. They keep going, no comment, no comment, no comment. It's not a good look for the league. They're almost trying to bury their head in the sand and avoid it, not talk about it. I hope it goes away here. You think they would have learned their lesson with the Chicago Blackhawks and what happened there, Craig? They're doing it all over again.
All right, George. Well, thanks again for coming on NewsWire on short notice. Really appreciate it. And you and I, I'm sure, will speak again coming up soon. Baseball season around the corner. Thanks again.
Can't wait, Craig. Can't wait.
All right, we'll wrap it up next.
Introducing Sports Injury Central's new feature, The Injury Edge, your NFL matchup cheat sheet. See all the significant injury mismatches broken down by offense and defense to highlight where the advantages lie. All for only $2.99 a week. How can you even consider making a bet or setting your fantasy lineup without knowing the injury mismatches? Go to sixscore.com today and get this week's Injury Edge.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
I can see why people would bet Boston at minus about 45. But I think the two of them are so exciting and so talented and so awesome. I went with and made the bet of the over 6.5.
There are issues with football character. Always doing the right thing, being in the right spot, being highly coachable. Why do they continue to fail in the big moments? It's football character, Pharrell. It's not a talent issue. That has nothing to do with it.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
I'm not going to lie. I'm a Knicks fan. I feel bad for Obi Toppin. I mean, Obi Toppin was backing up Julius Randle, and then he got his opportunity in Indiana, was playing great, didn't play D, brought him off the bench, and now they got Pascal Siakam, and now he's going into a free agent year. So Obi may be looking for a new home, but I do like that fast break if it's Halliburton with Obi and Siakam.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Welcome back to NewsWire. I'm always fascinated by sports memorabilia. I have a pretty decent collection myself from being involved in this stuff for the last, 30, 40 years. But nothing I have is worth what this is potentially going to go off of via auction. When Lionel Messi was 13 years old, I guess he signed a contract for over $380,000. Again, right now it means nothing. But at 13 years old, this was the contract on that piece of napkin that is worth $380,000. That's what the asking price is for that napkin right there. I don't have anything that's worth that. But again, this was the first original deal. I guess maybe his parents were involved. I have no idea. But for those of you interested, you can head on over. I believe it's a golden auction and throw your bid down. That's what I believe that's what it's expected to get. $380,000. That's not what. Oh, that's the opening bid. Okay, yeah, not to be confused with what his contract was. That is not the case. This is just simply to own the napkin, and I like our title there that says a very messy napkin. Although I can't imagine. I really appreciate memorabilia stuff. Some of this stuff I don't understand it. I guess you just have to be a super fan of the athlete, or you maybe it's nostalgic for you because you were at an event or something like that. But really, I don't know. I guess when you just have so much money you have nothing to do with, that's what you do. You buy a napkin and a contract for Messi when he was 13, not 30. Incredible. All right, that'll do it for the show. Thanks again to George Kurtz for coming on the program, as well as Ben Stevens for his preview video, Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News, as well as Sam McQuillan from Legal Sports Report. Speaking of Sam, he was our producer today. Michael Cohen, our associate producer. As I mentioned, chicken parmesan is the meal of choice for all of you watching the Super Bowl. If you want to know more about that, hit me up on social media, at Craig Mish or at SportsGrid. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Our Friday edition of NewsWire is next. It's tomorrow at 11 a.m. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you then.